Noel had managed the private dining floor at the Ashmore Hotel for 19 years, and in all that time he had learned one rule above all others. When Cormac Slade booked the Harrow Room, you put your best linen on the tables, you told your staff to move quietly, and you did not look the man directly in the eye. It was not that Cormac Slade was unpleasant. He was, in Noel's experience, scrupulously polite. A word of thanks for a well-timed pour, a nod when the lamb was done correctly. But the room changed when he entered it. The other guests stood straighter. Conversations dropped half a register. Even the candlelight seemed to steady itself, as though the flames understood that this was not a man who tolerated flutter. Noel had once overheard a junior waiter ask who he was, and the senior porter had simply said, "The kind of man whose phone calls get answered on the first ring." That was enough. Tonight was a signing dinner. 8 men at the long mahogany table, crystal and silver, a lamb course and a fish course and a dessert. No one would touch because the business of the evening was too close. Noel knew the shape of these dinners. The papers would come out after the port. Hands would be shaken. Someone would make a toast that sounded like warmth, but was really a declaration. The man making the toast tonight was Desmond Farr, Cormac's oldest partner, white-haired and broad, with a laugh that arrived half a second before anything was funny. Noel had always found Desmond slightly too comfortable in rooms where other men, careful. Tonight he was more comfortable than usual, refilling his own glass without waiting, clapping shoulders, talking just loud enough. Bridget noticed too. Noel knew this because Bridget noticed everything, though he had never given her credit for it. She had worked the Harrow Room for 6 years, quiet, reliable, plain in her hotel uniform, the kind of staff member who fulfilled her duties so steadily that management stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a function. She appeared beside a glass when it needed filling. She cleared a plate without disturbing a sentence. She was, in the private vocabulary of the Ashmore, excellent. She was also, in the private vocabulary of the Ashmore, invisible. Noel was at the service station, near the far wall, when he saw Bridget set down her water pitcher and go still. She was standing 3 feet from the corridor door, which had swung an inch ajar. Through it, Noel could not hear the words. Bridget was close enough, and her face changed. Not dramatically. Bridget was not a dramatic woman. But something in her jaw settled, the way a person's jaw settles when they have just heard something they cannot unknow, and are deciding, very quickly, what to do about it. She turned back toward the table. Her expression was composed. She picked up her pitcher. Noel watched her move to Cormac Slade's place at the head of the table, refill the water glass with a steady hand, and then, so smoothly that Noel almost missed it, slide something beneath the base of the glass, a fold of linen, no, a card, something small and white, written on. She moved on to the next glass without looking back. Cormac did not look down immediately. He was listening to Desmond, who had placed one hand flat on the table in the manner of a man making a point of great sincerity. Then, in a pause, Cormac set 2 fingers on his water glass, lifted it and glanced down. He read. He set the glass back. His face did not change. Not a flicker, not to Noel's eye, and Noel was watching closely now, though he could not have said why. Cormac folded the small of paper once and tucked it into his breast pocket, and then he asked Desmond a question about the timeline for the second tranche. And the conversation moved on. 20 minutes later, Cormac excused himself to take a call. He did not return to the table for 11 minutes. When he did, he sat down, accepted the port Noel poured for him, and said that unfortunately the signing would need to be postponed. A matter had arisen that required his solicitor's attention before anything was executed. His voice carried no heat, no accusation. He said it the way a man says the train has been delayed. A fact, an inconvenience, a matter already being handled. Desmond's face went the color of old ash. 2 of Cormac's men, they had been seated at the far end of the table, quiet, eating well, stood up, not aggressively. They simply stood and moved to stand near the door. When Desmond's associate tried to leave ahead of the others, one of them said something low and courteous, and the man sat back down. Noel kept moving. He poured, he cleared. He kept his face in its professional arrangement. But his hands, he noticed, were not quite steady. The dinner ended. The guests filed out. Desmond went last, between the 2 quiet men, and no one raised a voice and no one laid a hand, and that, Noel thought, was somehow the most frightening thing he had witnessed in 19 years. At the Ashmore, the absolute, unhurried calm of it, he was tallying the linen count at the service station when he became aware that Cormac Slade had not left. Noel had assumed he had gone out through the main corridor, but he was standing at the entrance to the service passage, not entering it, just standing at its mouth, as though uncertain of the protocol, as though as uncertain was a thing this man could be. Bridget came through the swing door with a tray of cleared glasses. She stopped when she saw him. Expression did not give way to alarm or deference. She simply looked at him directly, the way she looked at everything. "You wrote the note," Max said. It was not a question. "I did," she said. "You overheard Farr's man in the corridor. He wasn't speaking quietly enough," she said. "The documents your partner brought tonight. The signature pages had been substituted. Your solicitor would have found it eventually. By then, your name would have been on them." A silence. Cormac studied her with an attention that Noel found almost difficult to watch. Not threatening, absolute, the way a man looks at something he is trying to understand from the foundation up. "You could have said nothing," he said. "It was nothing to do with you." Bridget set her tray down on the edge of the service shelf. "It was wrong," she said. "That was enough. You didn't know who I was." "I knew you were a guest in this hotel," she said. "I knew you were about to be robbed by someone you trusted. The rest of it didn't factor in." Another silence. Longer. Noel had stopped pretending to count linen. "What do you want?" Cormac asked. "For having done this." Bridget looked at him with something close to mild surprise. "Nothing," she said. "It was the right thing. You don't get paid for the right thing." She picked up her tray again. "Good night, Mr. Slade. Mind the step on your way out. The threshold's uneven." She pushed through the swing door and was gone. Noel looked at Cormac Slade. He had seen the man at the Ashmore through 10 signing dinners, 2 charity galas, and 1 very quiet birthday that no one was meant to know about. He had never seen him look the way he looked now. Not shaken, that was too large a word. Stilled, rather. Like a man who has been walking a road his whole life and has just found, entirely without warning, that it goes somewhere he had stopped believing it could. Cormac straightened his jacket. He glanced at Noel, who looked immediately at his clipboard. Then Cormac walked out through the main corridor, slowly, the way a man walks when he is thinking about something other than where he is going. Noel finished his count. He turned off lights in the Harrow room. He went home. 3 weeks later, an envelope appeared in the staff mail tray addressed to Bridget in handwriting that was not the hotel's typeface. Noel saw it in the morning and left it for her without comment. He was in the linen room that afternoon when she found him. She held the letter loosely, as though she had read it several times, and it had not grown less surprising. "He's offered me a position," she said, "with his firm Correspondence and Records Management." She paused. "Full salary. References from his own solicitor." Noel folded a tablecloth. "Will you take it?" She was quiet a moment. "I don't know yet," she said. "I'll have to think on it." Where there was something in her face. Not excitement, which was not Bridget's register. Something steadier than that. The look of a woman who has spent years being invisible and has been, without asking for it, genuinely seen. Noel had worked the Ashmore for 19 years. He had watched powerful men and frightened men, and men who were both at once. He had watched staff members who were brilliant go unnoticed for decades. Had watched guests move through the room without once registering the people who served them. He thought about the note folded under the glass. He thought about a woman who had risked her position, her livelihood, her plain and decent life, for a stranger because it was wrong. That was enough. He thought Bridget should take the job. He did not say so. It was not his place. But when she left the linen room, he set down the tablecloth he was folding and stood a moment in the quiet, and felt, without quite being able to name it, that he had witnessed something he would carry for the rest of his working life. The most feared man in any room in this city, undone not by force or cunning or the slow accumulation of power, but by 4 words written in eyeliner on a fold of hotel paper, hard by a woman who asked for nothing and meant every one of them.